call me a god. You call me a god. You call me a god. You call me a god.
Let's go. I'm about to go off like a weapon. Fuel to the top, got a filled up engine. In my thoughts, obsession. I will not stop, no, I'm never second guessing. I got a God complex. Haters love to hate, but I never feel pressed. Got a lot on my plate, but I never get stressed. I'll take all the pressure like I'm acing this test. Tear it up like I'm Jason. I see the world like it's ready for the taking. I see this place like a game I'm playing. Straight to the bank to collect my payments. No negotiations, it's my way, I was born impatient. And like a damn Freemason, I'll run this nation.
You call me a god. You call me a god. You call me a god. You call me a god.
I don't know how to stop. I just go till I drop. Whether it's working or shots, give it all that I got. You can watch me work in my element. Anyone in the way is irrelevant. You wanna cross me, cool, not intelligent. Cause I don't forget shit like an elephant. Go ahead and tempt me, put it on the line and you'll come up empty. If I got time, I'm deadly. Never caught off guard, no, I'm always ready. I got a hand real steady. Look me in the eye and you'll see no hezzy. About to get real messy. I'll put you in a grave 6 feet like Kenny.
You call me a god. You call me a god. You call me a god.
What's good, everybody? It's your boy Reckless Rated Arrow, and we are back at it again for another episode of Future Financial Strategies. It's Thursday, getting ready to roll into Bag Fortification Friday. We've been dropping that off, but we need to remind people that we are about bag fortification over here in the Wolf Pack. We want to do everything that we need to do to make things more efficient. We need to not fumble the bag going into Friday. I know there's a lot of conversation about that, but we're not even going to talk about fumbling the bag because we only fortify the bags, which means that we are making the moves necessary to move the needle forward. Now, with that said, I've made some changes in how I personally do things that I thought I would never get to the point of doing, but now I understand why people do it. I have started splitting up my paycheck. Like I've actually done the automatic direct deposit into multiple different accounts. It's only a little bit, just testing it out because the reason I do everything manually, because me personally, I have a bank account. The way that my accounts are set up, I have 3 accounts at my bank. I have the checking account, which I utilize as just a landing. This moves money. I don't keep money in it. I don't use the debit card. I keep my bare minimum, which is like anywhere between $25 and $50, just to have something in the account. And then I have a savings account that is an opportunity fund savings account that does keep a balance in it. I normally try not to go over $1,500. Normally it sits at around $1,000 because at whatever point I have enough to buy a full share of QQQ, which is my opportunity savings ETF, I'll move over whatever that amount is. So it normally sits at about $1,000. And then I have my in-home banking savings, which is like my emergency fund account, except for I use mine as like a personal credit card and I just pay myself back 10%. To kind of grow those funds. So that account is growing, but it is functional and it does do something. So I don't mind having money in that account in my bank. But there's a couple other places that I move money to. Obviously, I have to move money to my brokerage account, of which I have 2 at present. There's the base brokerage account, and then there is the Roth IRA account. And both of those accounts are, I personally manage them. They're both basically doing the same thing. My Roth, I'm just going to set up to generate income. My brokerage account, this initial one, is going to be an income account. It's going to be a functional income account. And as that scales out and as we get enough money kicking off on that, we will roll into other accounts because I will be separating the accounts. At present, it is housing my brokerage, my beginnings of the income dividend portfolio that I'm building. And it's also housing the opportunity fund because there's no reason to separate that. I don't need to separate that out because it's literally one holding position. So when it's time to utilize it, I just cash it out. But we've got that set up. We did get to the metric of piquing my interest of getting the dividends to kicking out over $100 a month. That was first month was the month of January when it finally produced $100. This month it did follow up and produce $100. Was a little bit less than what it was the previous month, but now that we've got everything consolidated down into a big boy brokerage, I say big boy brokerage because the ones that are tied to your bank account, the Robinhoods, the Weebles, the other, I mean, it's like they get dividends funny. They get dividends at funny time, like even the Cash Apps. Like your dividends hit at a different time scale because it's not an actual brokerage. Basically anywhere that allows you to do fractional or is tied to your bank. So like Citibank has a brokerage option that they have to help you build wealth over there with them. I don't recommend it. They're still actively, I got my letter from my complaint that I filed. They're still actively blocking access to the Bitcoin ETFs and any of the products or derivatives that are on the New York Stock Exchange that are a result of that are touching that sphere. So I took my money out, put it in my big boy brokerage account that allows you to have access to everything that's on the New York Stock Exchange, capitalism as it should be. And yeah, I got my letter back saying that they're standing on business. They're going to block that. And you know, I feel like they're going to have some switch ups and leaderships over there because me personally, I closed down all my accounts except for the credit card. The credit card I had before I started trying to get a relationship situation going with them. So I'm keeping my credit card at least for now until I find a better option to replace that for what I'm utilizing it for, which is to get those 0% tasty cash advance deals where you get money for basically a flat sum of 4%. I do pay those back within the window, and it allows me to front run my acquisition of assets. So we use all debt over here to acquire assets more or less. But that said, it's so I'm pulling all my stuff from them, and I feel like they're going to have some changes in leadership, kind of similar to what Vanguard's doing. Their CEO stepped down over his completely ridiculous opinion. He had a really, really bad stance because Vanguard also they're blocking access to the Bitcoin ETFs that are on the New York Stock Exchange. They're being anti-capitalist. They're a capitalist company that touts the greatness of capitalism, but it's capitalism up until when you have an opportunity to win or compete or establish wealth yourself, because at a certain point, your financial advisor is going to be completely worthless. You could have just bought the Bitcoin ETF and sat on it. You could have just bought Bitcoin. Even better, you could have just bought Bitcoin and sat on it. But I digress. We don't have to jump into that. As we get into the show, let's thank the sponsor of the show and the platform, Delta Investment Tracker app. If you have not touched base with them, there is a link down in the description. It's not a traditional referral link. I don't get anything out of it. It just lets people know that you found them by way of the Future Financial Strategies show and platform, and good old Reckless Rate and Arrow sent you over there. So it'd be much appreciated if you're considering downloading and testing out the app, which I high key recommend. It can track both your brokerage portfolios and your crypto. Use my referral link and let them know that you saw it, heard about them over here, and that we're doing our part. Also, if you're serious about getting deeper down the rabbit hole into your investments by means of strategy, being able to talk to people that are maybe further ahead in these markets than you are, be it futures trading, options trading, portfolio building, cryptocurrency, real estate wholesaling. We've got a lot of very talented people over in Circa 84. There is a referral link for that down in the description. If you guys want to join up and take the conversation to the next level, definitely make sure to hit my referral link down in the description. Now, so as I was saying, I have jumped into the efficiency standpoint because it's just a couple of less things to do. Like the money just shows up in those accounts. It's actually a lot easier for me than manually sending the money over and waiting for it to get there. Everything hits where it kind of in its retrospective area around on payday. Like it's great. Like payday hits when it hits my bank account, it hits my brokerage account. And the only ones that I split out, I still manually move over because it's a varying amount of funds that go into the brokerage accounts. But they're but the way that I have it set up, like, so I have it going to my Roth because I am horrible about putting money in there. It's like the last place I put money, but I figured this year I wanted to start kind of eking that up. Like it's producing some really good dividends, but I wanted to start adding to that. So what we're doing over there is we have the small allotment that goes into that, which is very minuscule because I'm not an advocate of failure funds, but I do think that like since I've got it set up already and there's funds in there, I should go ahead and just keep trickling some funds over there. So I've got that, and then I have an allocation that goes into my Cash App because I have money that I move into Cash App every payday. So I spend all my petty cash. Like if I get something extra for lunch, if I want to grab like an extra soda or grab extra food or whatever, because I try to make my lunch efficient. So like what I try to do is I try to take everything that I'm going to need to eat for that day. So that way I'm in control of what I'm eating during the day. And I've been really bad about that as of lately. And we're alleviating that problem. My lunchbox broke, got a new lunchbox. Like I've had that lunchbox for a minute and I'm in construction. So partially. So stuff just gets worn out because it actually gets used. It did last over a year though. And I don't spend much on lunchboxes. So it was worth it for me. So I got a new lunchbox coming in and like, I'm, trying to keep this weight on, which means that we have to eat more. So I've got to ration that out a little bit more because I'm a little bit hungrier during the day than I normally used to be. And yeah, outside of that though, it's not bad. It's not bad. It's working out really well. We're trying to reel in the expenses because at this point we're almost to the cutoffs. I mean, hold on, let me take a look here. Take a look here because I mean Bitcoin's sitting at 61, basically at $62,000, which means that we've got about $7,000 more dollars of upward trending to go before we hit the cutoff. And so the cutoff for me for actively going into the Bitcoin space is going to be at 69,000, which is the previous all-time high. We're getting all the positions that we can in as possible before then, which I believe at this point is going to be before halving. I thought it was going to stretch out a little bit longer in my projections, but I project conservatively and life doesn't care. So we're going to have some stuff that gets shifted around as soon as we hit that metric because I won't need all of that money over into the Coinbase account because Coinbase is where I onboard, I get my Bitcoin over there. We've already well past the cutoff for the savings for the house. So that allocation, which is overrepresented already because it keeps going up, is set. Like that's set. I did a panic buy, went ahead and dumped all of the excess overtime money that I had and went ahead and got into the market this week. That was a big move, but as we're eking up, I was like, I didn't want to have to buy outside of the window that I said I was going to buy. So now when we get back up to 69,000, I'm good. Like I'm in, we've got the positions, they're generating their income, and we'll be able to recycle that. And I can focus on building out my brokerage portfolio, because what we're trying to do is I don't want to have to ever touch my crypto, is basically the way that this is set up. And so now that I've got a decent amount in the space, and by decent for me, and obviously people argue this one back and forth because they like to say, oh, well, I've got more. Decent for me is over 6 figures. And I've been over 6 figures in the market, but like now I'm at a spot where I'm like, okay, like I want to hedge this back because I don't want to have to cash that out. Like that's retirement for me as far as I'm concerned. There's a small bit of it that's active, but most of it's going to be retirement. And I actually might start taking out like a little bit of a management fee every year. I've decided that I might be at the point to where I might do that, like give myself 1% that I can pull out and then convert over into my brokerage fund, because all my income right now, the phase that I'm in right now with my finances is all the income that comes in right now needs to be going into a working field. But I'm really starting to focus in on getting the income shifted over into my brokerage account, because if I get paid in dividends, that is 15% tax for what I make, because I'm average Joe, not quite brokey, I'm not 6 figures, but I know how money works. So we're flipping it in the best fashion that we can. And I want all of my money, like a good portion of my income, at least the income. My goal is to get if I were to take a snapshot of what my expenses are right now, to be able to have this be the bare minimum, because this isn't bad. I'm not complaining. I got nothing to complain about. And if I can just snapshot now and go, that's the number that I need. That doesn't mean that I'm going to not work, but I'll be able to have a lot more leverage. I'll be more willing to take vacations. I'll be more willing to do a bunch of other stuff that I deem to be non-productive, because at that point it won't really matter. But like, as far as like not going to work, that's not going to happen. But as far as like building, if I get a snapshot and can get that dividend income up to what I'm making now, take home, I don't even need the gross, because like people talk about gross. I don't deal in gross. I deal in what you take home, because that's the money you actually see. Like after it's all said and done, I'm like, I see this amount of money. I actually exist with this amount of money. Like I don't, like, the gross amount that I make doesn't matter to me. The government steals it. The state steals it. And then what I'm left with is what I'm left with. And like, that's realistically what I'm subsisting and surviving on. So I'm looking at that number. I'm not even trying to like match the gross. Like, I don't care. I'm like, I need to know what I actually see when that paycheck hits every 2 weeks. That's what I need to match every month. It's what I need to make. So with that said, we're looking at doing things more efficiently. And it's gotten to the point now to where with the crypto stuff, like I know that when I sit down and I get to move my crypto around, that's going to be a couple of hours. Doing my monthly financials, that's going to be a couple of hours. Looking at just like the breakdown of my financials, like these are things that take hours. The process of moving my money around on payday was taking probably about 45 minutes. It's a 45-minute thing that I do every Friday morning, and having it direct deposited, just splitting off a little bit of it, like substantially brought that down. Like the math that I got to do when I got to go figure out how we're managing the floating debt and like all that stuff. It streamlined it, because there were 2 things that I didn't have to do that were 2 separate places that I don't have to really touch on now until I'm ready to. And that was very, it just saves a little bit of time. And me personally, I understand that a lot of people start off with like, oh yeah, you just automate your paycheck and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, if you're in a paycheck to paycheck scenario, that could be dangerous, like, first of all. But I actually like manually moving the money. I like knowing where the money's going. I like having that like tactile feel of like, I moved this amount of money here, took note of it, and it's done. It's like it's a part of the process for me that like makes me feel like I'm connected to it. Like I couldn't, also because it varies, because like if I'm putting in a lot of overtime, or I've got side jobs and side income coming in, it's different than if you're just doing all this stuff and you're not managing any of it yourself, which I understand that there's people out there that do that, which is fine. I just don't. So for me, the whole automation, getting the direct deposits going multiple places, like really didn't hit for me until this last paycheck. Like this paycheck was the first one where it did, and I was like, oh, like my Friday morning just sped up a lot. Like, so we're definitely gonna be dabbling with that. Obviously, I'm gonna have to change it, but now that I know that as soon as I change it, as long as I do it at the very end of a pay period, the very next pay period, like our HR company that we have for the business is top notch. Like when I go put in a change, if I do it right after we get paid, when the next time we get paid, the change is effective, which is cool. Cause like, I mean, I remember back in the day, if you changed anything, you'd have to have both accounts open and trying to figure out when stuff is going to get where and like what's going on with it. And it took weeks or a month. And it's much faster now, and I appreciate that. So when it's time to make those changes, we'll just be shifting a little bit of that over. But I'm excited about it. I'm really excited about it. It's one of the things that I always say, like, I don't have a set in stone. There's not one way to do this. I do things based on math and logic. And the logic on this really didn't make sense until I'm doing so many processes in the finance and in my finances that I'm like, now I'm just doing a bunch of stuff. Like I'm just doing a bunch of stuff just because, and that's not as efficient. Like there's other things I want to do on Fridays. Like I could get more recording done. You streamline down to 40 to 15 minutes. I can record an additional episode on Fridays now. Like I'm starting to be able to utilize my Fridays. Now, granted, also when I'm working a lot of overtime, like my Fridays are gone, my Saturdays are gone. I'm just trying to record when I can. You guys will see that there's going to be some changes around here. We're getting ready to be in a state to where we can update the studio, get a little bit of different anglage going on in here. We're going to rearrange the desk. We're going to do a few interesting things. To kind of make stuff better around here. Also, the recordings are going to be more consistent and project. Like, I mean, it's not going to matter for you guys, but like we'll have these scheduled out. Like I'll have topics, like we'll do things like I'll be able to hot shot recordings and slide them in. You're going to see more of the clips coming back. I'm going to get those going. Yeah, we're going to have a little bit more time because now that we're scaling back and the workload's dying down a little bit back into normal schedule realm, I will be doing a lot more. I'll be able to focus my attention back over here a lot more. So we're going to be doing that. And for those of you who have been here through the turmoil, thank you. For those of you just tapping in, join the Wolf Pack. It's going to be a wild ride, and there is plenty of room because we're not trying to get rich by ourselves. I've got a couple of news things that I want to cover before we get out of here. I got two things that we're doing that's going to be a little bit different than what we normally do. It's going to be fun, and I'm going to try and keep these incorporated into the lexicon of the show when relevant. Like obviously, I don't do news every single show, but some shows we do have things we want to talk about. And like I always like looking at this. It says the average American has $65,000 in their savings account. How do you compare? This is part. So this news article and the framing that they use is part of the reason that I don't necessarily know that I believe the narrative about Americans not having money, not having savings, because I do not have $65,000 in my savings account. I feel like that would be the most ignorant thing ever, considering inflation, because like you're just losing buying power, and at $65,000 you're losing buying power at a very fast clip. You're losing $6,500 on average in buying power a year, because real world inflation is at minimum 10%. I understand they tell us, if you believe what they tell you, then you're probably broke as is. Like, but we function in what's really going on. And like, there's still people complaining about the groceries. You can't afford groceries. You can't afford the membership to go to Costco to buy in bulk because you can't afford to buy in bulk. Let's talk about it. Prices are going up on stuff. Speaking of which, if you are experiencing a crunch on groceries, Aldi, if you have Aldi in your area, very good food place. You can get in there. It's not necessarily all name brand stuff, but it's all good stuff. And you don't go in there and walk out with an arm and a leg. And like, I use it to cover like my dinners at home so that I can eat fresh. I've actually put myself on a new rule that I will get all of my snacks I'm getting all my snacks, all my random meals for at home from Aldi's. Obviously, I go to Walmart and grab some canned goods, or Price Chopper, or like any grocery store. I'll go get some canned goods from there because like I like making these chili pie things with like chips, and you get good chili, and you can do that. But Aldi, you can walk out of there with a lot of groceries, and it's more cost effective than going to Price Chopper or Walmart or most places, because even Walmart, the food's not cheaper there. The food's not less expensive. And so like, you got to think with intention. Like, the reason I like Aldi is because the food is generally healthier. It's healthier options. They have organic food. Like, they're not big on pesticides. I get a lot of my produce and salads and stuff from there. And they're good. Like, it's good stuff. Like, it's not name brand. It doesn't say Dole on it. It's like a different brand. But I'm like, with they have higher quality controls for their food than most grocery stores do. So I feel, and this is one of the few times I'm going to say I feel like I'm being poisoned less when I eat Aldi food. Like, I'm just going to throw it out there because like that's one of their standards. Also, it's less expensive per load. Like my Aldi hauls, and I might do that on TikTok. I might do a Aldi haul series or something where we go through and like it just goes through the stuff that I eat, because like like those of you who follow me on social media, like I got my weight up to 200 pounds, which was like a lifelong goal. And this is coming from somebody who wrestled at 145 in high school. I was big, tall, and very skinny. And I didn't like it. So I wanted to change it. So like we got to 200, but that requires me to eat a lot more than what I normally eat. So like I have to have options. One of the other things that I'm trying to cut back on doing is going out for fast food. So I've limited myself. The rules that's going in place is I'm limiting myself to Chipotle and places of the like that have real food. Because we have like a Greek version of Chipotle that's here in town that's really good. And I do like that sometimes. But otherwise, I'm going to start just eating at home, and I'll go, because when you go out to fast food now, you're spending $16. For $16, I can have salads for an entire week from Aldi. The chopped salad kits. Like, that's like 3 or 4 meals. And then like, if you're spending like 16 to 20 bucks, like my last Aldi haul that I got to cover me for the weekend and probably halfway through the week was, how much was it? It was like $33. That's basically 2 trips to go get fast food, which I have been finding myself doing a week. Easy. Because like I'll get in a situation where I'm busy and then I'll forget. And then next thing you know, I'm going to go hit Wendy's up $16. Going to go hit Burger King up $14. That's literally a week's worth of salad. So the decision's going to be like, if I need a snack and like I need to run to go get something from somewhere, because like, I mean, at this point, even when you go to the gas station, you stop through Quick Trip, it's $12. It's like, at least you're not walking out of there not spending $10. And it adds up. And like, people don't think about it. And like, I didn't think about it until I saw the float, and I'm like, I haven't bought anything big, because like all my large purchases at this point, which is great, it's an accomplishment for myself, come out of that in-home banking savings thing. Like I don't ever really need anything that's over $1,000 normally. normally, like for large purchases, like unless I'm getting doodads and toys, and like that's really become what that fund is, because I don't generally have emergencies. So it's doodads and toys, and then everything else is in the stock market, and then that account is constantly growing because I'm paying myself back 10% every time. And so I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, I haven't been buying a bunch of stuff because I pay cash for all my large purchases. So there's no large purchases going on this card. And I'm just like, this is all fast food. This is, oh, I'm out and I'm randomly hungry today and I need to go get something extra. And it's like, you didn't need to go get that. Like, it's not even stuff that I need. And this is a complete Western issue of stuff that we don't need, and we just go get it, and then we're just like, why don't I have money? And it's like, that's why you went and got a bunch of stuff you absolutely don't need. Like, I'll bring my lunch and still go spend $12 at Quick Trip because I like Quick Trip. I like the stuff, but like, if I have things to eat and I'm not like, so it's going to be specifically like, I've got to cut back to the quick. I got to be really stringent and disciplined, because like that's one of the areas where I lack discipline sometimes, especially if I'm tired. If I'm tired, all bets are off. Like, we're hitting that petty cash. Like, that's the reason I started doing the petty cash, because it was like, there's no way I'm going to not go to Quick Trip. It's not going to happen. But then like on the way home, sometimes like if I'm leaving work and I'm hungry and I don't think that I have food, or or if I don't have food at the house and I have to go make a stop to get groceries and I'm dirty, I'll just go get fast food. So now I have to go, okay, it's better to just go ahead and spend this money up front as opposed to spending $16 3 days a week, which, this is how bad I am at math, but my teacher told me I would never have calculators, and oh, she was wrong. So 16 times 3, it's $48. $48 I can feed myself for over a week just going to Aldi. Easy. I can have snacks, all my dinners, because I only eat once when I get home because I do intermittent fasting. So I'm done eating by 8 anyway. I could have everything that I need to have the one meal, because I do bulk order for all my lunch stuff. So lunch is taken care of. I could eat all week for those 3 stops. That's a week's worth of food in individual sittings. Like, I mean, last night I broke my own rule because I didn't go fix a salad. I ordered DoorDash. DoorDash is another problem for me because I can have people bring me anything, and it's wonderful and I love it. But I only did that once this week. Thank goodness. Because like that's gonna be $20 easy. They're gonna get you for 20 at DoorDash. Like, if you do that 3 days a week, that's $60. That's borderline 2 weeks worth of food for 3 meals a week. So I went off on a little tangent there, but I'm going to get back to the conversation at hand. So the average American having $65,100 in their savings account is marketing by the bank, because that is an inefficient means. It's an inefficient tool with which to save money, because you're not beating inflation. I'm going to say that again. You're not beating inflation. You're going broke slow. Keeping money in the bank to have money in the bank, that's boomer logic. It's an old thought process. It's an old flex. Like, if you tell me you got $65,000 in the bank, I'm like, that's dumb. Like, I just look at you like you're stupid. That's not impressive anymore. You're saying that you're going broke poor. Also, who benefits from that? It's not you. It's the bank, because they get to loan out that money. And they give us metrics like these so that then now the lexicon online, everybody's going to be moving $65,000 into their bank account to act like they're doing something, and they're just making the bank money. It's dumb. It's just like people who the only conversation they can have is about how much they make, but they're making $250,000 a year, living paycheck to paycheck. Like, you're not worth anything. You're still poor. You're just a higher paid slave. Congratulations. What would be interesting, but then you take these doom and gloom metrics about Americans not having money, and if it's going based on if we're keeping cash in the bank, then yeah, I look poor as fuck. Ooh. And it's because I don't keep money in the bank. I keep money in the market. I keep money in my brokerage account. I keep money in crypto. Like, there's like, basically at this point, everything else is a better play than the bank, in my opinion. Like if you can't beat your bank's interest rate of 4% in the market, that's, I don't know. Like you gotta check yourself, because you could just put it in, like I would, if you're just trying to preserve wealth, you can just put it in the index pegged to the S&P 500. That'll at least keep the value of those dollars, because that's going to at least track with inflation. But this ideology that there's going to be this, oh, we're keeping money in the bank deal. It's, I don't know. I feel like that's a bad metric. And if that's where they're getting the, oh, Americans don't have any money, then it's like, well, we've moved on from the bank. Like it's just not an efficient vehicle. So either you make it more efficient or figure something out. Like that's just what it is. Like there's no point in keeping money in the bank at this point, unless you're just trying to go broke go broke slowly. Because you're gonna be able to buy less and less stuff. So yeah, that was an interesting article headline that I saw that might be of interest to some people. And I'll drop this in the news section. I'm also going to drop this next thing. This is the last thing that we're closing out with. I got a reaction to a video that I thought was really interesting. So we're going to slide on over to Facebook and play this for you guys. Oh, hold on. There we go. Got to unmute it. Here we go. Let's go.
You made $1 billion this year. We're going to tax half of that. Actually, you can't, because I didn't earn any income. My company just...
Hey, Alex, I need...
Jeff Bezos, it looks like you made $1 billion this year. We're going to tax half of that. Actually, you can't, because I didn't earn any income. My company just went up in value, and that caused my shares in Amazon to increase, which is why it shows that I made $1 billion. Okay, good try, but eventually you're going to have to sell your shares to get spendable money. Then we will hit you with capital gains tax, which will tax you based on how much your assets went up in value, in this case, your shares of Amazon. Well, what if I just never sell my shares? I mean, you could do that, but then you aren't going to have any money and you wouldn't be able to actually buy anything. Nope. When I want money, all I have to do is take out a loan from the bank and use my assets as collateral. In this case, I'll put up my Amazon shares as collateral that the bank can take from me if I don't pay them back with interest. Now I get my money and we can't tax you because debt is tax-free. Exactly. Well, won't you have to pay back the loan? How will you have enough money to do that? Well, first of all, I get super low interest rates because, well, I'm so rich. Plus, Amazon will almost certainly grow enough to pay back the loan and more. And overall, it's still way cheaper than paying tax. Geez, that's smart. Where'd you learn that? Oh, well, it was easy. I just followed. Okay, you don't have to follow me, but it would be.
All right. So that we're going to close out on that one, but there was some major gems dropped in there, and it's the whole ideology of we got to tax the rich. We got to do, we're going to tax the billionaires. They don't get paychecks. Like most billionaires actually make less in their W-2 than I do because they're playing a different game. And if that game were to ever become taxed, then they would all just leave. They would go set up somewhere else. Like we have freedom of mobility. And people choose to not learn the game. They don't get taxed because their salaries are low. They're paying their taxes on their salaries. It's just Elon Musk makes $50,000. He makes less money than I do. And his W-2, richest man, one of the richest men on the planet. People look at it from their lexicon of where they're at and where they either believe or think or know where they're going to be at. So they go, I get taxed like this, you should get taxed more. And the reality of it is they're not making their money the same way that you are. They're not playing the same game that you are. And there are ways that you can move into that space. One of the gems that was dropped, borrowing against your brokerage account. I talk to most people. Their conversation stems around, oh, I bought this stock and I'm going to sell it here and I'm going to do this and I'm going to sell it. Only poor and working class people give up assets to continue to go do other things with it, to go get non-assets. You're gonna sell your stock and go buy a boat. Now you lost the stock, you bought a boat, gonna go down in value, and now you're just in a losing proposition. Like, everything that you do is centered around you whittling away your wealth because you're choosing to just look at things from the lexicon of where you are. Wealthy people don't give up assets unless they absolutely have to. And we're not trying to, if you're not trying to move towards that game, you're going to have problems financially forever. Like, you can get to a point of comfort where you can just ride it out, but like, that just, it's inefficient. Again, math, it's inefficient. If there are other tools in, because then you're also paying more in taxes because now you pay capital gains tax to varying degrees, but most of you are in the short-term play scenario because you're living hand to mouth, and you're just constantly paying more in taxes because you're not understanding the game that you're playing or what the rules are or what options you have. Like, most people don't even know that you can borrow against your brokerage account, and that if you borrow against your brokerage account, loans aren't taxed because debt's not taxed. But you're supposed to be debt free because Dave Ramsey told you. Sounds like you're just going to be paying more taxes than literally anyone who's playing the actual game of money. But debt free, that's bad. Like, okay, that's fine. But the way that you're going about things is less efficient. Like, let's call it what it is. Now, if you're not responsible and you're not disciplined financially, then yeah, debt is terrible. Especially if you're using debt to go buy things. But debt to buy assets, different conversation. That's called wealth expansion. You're able to expand wealth that way. Also, time value of money factors in with debt heavily. If you don't know what the time value of money is, go look it up. But basically, for those of you who are C and D students like myself, it's the value of $1 today is higher than a value of the value of $1 tomorrow or next week or next month, which means that when you take out debt, the dollars that you're paying them back with are actually worth less. So if you take out debt to buy an asset that goes up in value and then you pay back with dollars without selling the asset, and you get to keep the asset, you win twice because the dollars that you're paying them back with are worth less than the dollars were when you took the loan. Now, if you go buy like toys, you're funding your vacation, and everything that you do that's debt related is about short-term gratification, then yeah, you're just losing the game twice. But when you bring assets, and like, if you're focused on using debt, like what we did with our Discover card loan when they sent us those checks for 0% APR with a 4% fee, and we used it to buy Bitcoin and get the start of our get a big chunk of our mortgage a chunk of our mortgage payments out so that we can get that quarter window, so that way we're clear there, and then getting the other part of it in the market when that was going on. And now we're almost paid back already. About to make some pivots. Going to go into debt clearing mode. We're gonna get all the debt cleared out as soon as we can, so that way when we get into the halving, we are free and clear. We might take out another loan to get another little boost in there, but the dollars that I'm paying that loan back with now are worth less than the dollars I took the loan out with. And guess what? We're up 50% on the Bitcoin position in our portfolio for that. So 4%, we already covered this loan. Almost. Like, I could almost take the profits from this and clear this loan out that we took to start that position. That's just off the Bitcoin. That's not including the QQQ position. So when people talk to you about money and they're giving their prescription, you have to ask, who is this for? Who is this prescription for? Is it for somebody who's on the path of financial literacy, who is looking to grow their wealth in the most efficient means possible? Or is it for the lowest common denominator? Is it for the person who you can't give a credit card to because they're just going to max it out and then wonder why they can't pay it back? It's very important when we're looking at these opportunities and we start talking, like, once you get, because I always tell people, start off at the Dave Ramsey level. It does teach financial discipline. It does teach you to make a plan. But when people become zealots about it and they become rigid, they're no longer competitive to somebody, because we're all, at the end of the day, we're all competing. And the numbers that go into your brokerage account, your net worth, and all those things are the points. You are no longer efficient at the game when you calcify on one thing with no reasoning behind it. Like, you can't tell me that when things are hyperinflating that cash is king just because that's a talking point. It makes no sense. How Sway? How is cash king? Put it in your bank account. What are you doing? Going poor slow. You're not even beating inflation. At minimum, you should be beating inflation. That's the bare minimum, or you're losing. In the grand scheme of things, like, if you can just buy less and less stuff, you are losing. Now you can get less and less food, less and less of a house, less and less of a car. Cash is not king right now. We can put that to bed. It's nice that Dave Ramsey said it, but after you get to, there's levels to this. Like, once you get to a certain level, like Dave Ramsey's starting out, like, you know nothing. Great place to start, but you're supposed to grow out of that. The issue is these people are making money off of you. So they don't want you to leave, because then you don't give them your money. They need you to be almost there, getting a little bit ahead, but not good enough where you don't need me, because they do one window in time financially, and it's the beginning. So they need you to be able to get on your feet, to be able to walk, but you can't run. They don't want you jogging either. You can just walk. And the reason they're so adamant that they're right, and the reason they give such terrible advice, because I watched Dave Ramsey give live on the air, told a person, I think it was 6 years ago, to sell all their Bitcoin. It's going to zero. And look at us now. How much money did that person lose if they listened to him? How many people did listen to him that, based on opportunity, they sold all their Bitcoin and got out? Look at the growth in the last 6 years. You lost those people money because of a bad take, because you don't want people jogging or running, because all you teach is walking. And there's plenty of quote unquote gurus out there. And that's the reason I'm like, I'm not trying to be a guru. I'm giving you the information as I'm going, because I'm not at the top of the mountain either, but I'm showing you based on numbers. This ain't emotion. This is nothing but pure numbers. It's just math. This is not hard. There's no room for emotion in this. When we're talking finances, if you have a prescription that you're prescribing, that you're adamant about, and it grows 10%, and I tell people, well, you could have just bought Bitcoin, and if you take the average, because a lot of y'all know how charts work, you can look at the charts. On average, you're over 100% a year. Your prescription nets them 10%, and they're supposed to feel good about that. Inflation is 10%, my good sirs. You're getting them to wealth preservation. You're not building wealth unless you consider looking at numbers going up in a bank account, even though they're not going up enough for the buying power to increase. Building wealth. I don't consider that building wealth. I think you're staying you're at the level. You're no longer drowning underwater. You're at water level. You can get your nose above. What we're talking about over here on Future Financial Strategies, we're doing anything and everything we can to get out of the water to begin with. We don't want to be in the puddle at all. We want out of it. And as I'm building, obviously we'll be able to go back. But the thing is, after I get to the finish line, and people are like, oh, like now he's got the results, and he's gonna flex on us with the Porsche, and he's gonna have all this stuff, and he's gonna be able to do the videos and the vlogs from everywhere else, blah 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 blah. All the stuff that doesn't matter. Y'all are gonna want to go back and be like, how did you did it? And how did you do it? And I'm gonna be like, well, the issue is gonna be at that point The stuff that I did might not work. Just like Dave Ramsey's prescription that he's been giving for forever during this climate of hyperinflation does not work, or doesn't work as efficiently as it did when he's prescribing it. Then it's going to be too late because you're not going to be able to go back and watch my old videos and do exactly what I did, probably, because the game is going to have changed. And then it's going to be like, well, the stuff that I'm doing now, I have a lot more money, a lot of different opportunities. I'm not in the mud with you anymore. So the stuff that I'm doing, you might not be able to even do starting out. So then the conversation changes. Now I'm talking down the mountain and pontificating, just like all of the gurus are, to you about your situation that I'm no longer in. It's going to be a different conversation at that point. And it's something to think about. I mean, it's just, I always tell people, whatever people tell you, do the math and see if the math shakes out. If the math doesn't shake out, it doesn't matter what they said. What they said was emotion. And we're gonna close it out on that. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Let me know what your thoughts are. I gave my thoughts, but I want to hear your thoughts down in the description. Again, thank you again to Delta Investment Tracking App. Thank you for those of you who stayed for this long in the video. Rounding it out at about 50, just at 50, a little bit over 50 minutes. We had a good one. Hope you guys enjoy it. Definitely hit the like button. Definitely share. Definitely subscribe, because obviously the camp is small over here, which I am for. I like having the channel the way that it is, because then I can talk to the people who matter. It's your boy Reckless Ray De Niro. And until next week, I'm out. Peace.